day to you all. If you would please put your palms together for a meditation reading. He abused me. He laughed at me. He struck me. Thus one thinks. And as long as one retains such thoughts, one's anger continues. Anger will never disappear so long as there are thoughts of resentment in the mind. Anger will disappear just as soon. When we think of the word fight, we think of pugilism, which is using gloves, or fist fighting, or it could be combat, using weapons, or, and I guess the Asian culture, it's the martial arts. And I see the martial arts as more of a discipline, learning to control ourselves, learning to defend ourselves, but yet there's control there. And pugilism is the art of boxing. And not everyone likes boxing, but there are many people who enjoy watching people fighting with gloves. Or the other new one out is that kickboxing, using not only the gloves but also the feet and kicking. But fighting also can come in through our words. All of us have that fighting spirit. All of us have that fighting spirit in us, which is actually one of the 6 rounds of hell that we live through every day. But this fighting spirit is where we get so intense that the first thing we do is we ball up our hands and fists, and that fighting spirit wants to come out and just take care of everything. But is that a way we do it? Is that a compromise to what the situation is? When we use fighting words, those words are hurting. They cause pain. They cause hurt. And it causes people to end up disliking you, or you disliking the other person. And we can see it in, a story has 2 sides. Your side, which is very subjective, and the other person's side, who also have subjective views. So how do you come to meet in the middle? Solution to this anger, this fighting spirit in us. But I think by looking at ourselves, looking within ourselves, what's causing that anger to come out. But it's also a matter of evaluating the situation of you and the other person. We don't know what's going on with that other person. Why does that other person have that fighting spirit? So looking at him with compassion and putting ourselves into that person's situation, maybe we can find out what causes that anger to come out as abuse or as bad, as fighting words. When I was growing up, I have to admit, I got into a lot of fights. And my nickname was Mighty Mouse, because I was the defender of my sister and my cousin. And every time something would happen to them, they would come running to me, and I would have to go. And I took care of business. Well, I was really tiny then. Well, I'm not that tall now. But it was still, I took care of what I had to take care of. Defend my cousin, my sister's honor. And I remember this one particular young girl that I had the argument with the fight with. And she was bitter, very bitter. I don't think it was really against my cousin, but it was bitter because he came from a relatively normal household, had loving parents, he had a nice house. You know, he always had a meal on the table. And they disciplined him, but they didn't discipline him to where they abused him. Well, after a while, we found out this young girl was abused at home, physically, verbally, emotionally. They seldom had meals. And she brought that anger, she brought that resentment to school. And she took it on a person who was a little bit more comfortable in his own self. But we didn't know that until much later when we found out what was happening at the house. And that changed the whole view of how we saw this little girl. You know, it was not out of pity, it was not out of sympathy, but it was out of empathy. It was seeing where she came from, her problems, why she brought it to us, brought it to the school. She was lashing out against her own self. So it comes down to our anger, our fighting spirit. Spirit is inside us all the time, ready at one time or another to come out. And we had to find solutions to look within ourselves, to see where this anger comes from, this fighting spirit comes from. And as I said, we all have fighting spirit. And we all, at one time in our lives, it comes out. But we had to also be aware of how, when it does come out, how are we affecting that other person, affecting the situation? Is it escalating it? And how, if it is, how do we bring it down? Something we have to think about all the time is that fighting spirit within us. So if you would please join me in Gasho. Namo Amidos. Namo Amidos. Namo Amidos. Namo